Oliver, are you ready?
Yes, I am. This meeting is being... Okay.
Olive.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Wishing you a very happy International Women's Day, Olive.
Thank you very much, Ruchira.
And that fantastic presentation on a fabulous career journey so far. So many congratulations on that too.
Thank you. Thank you.
And more than anything else, I would first like to congratulate you on being awarded and recognized as the African Women's Leader of the Year by the World Women Congress. That is a massive achievement, a massive award, and a massive accolade to have achieved and reached in your lifetime. So many congratulations to you for that as well.
Thank you, Ruchira. That was awesome. It was a momentous occasion, and I must say, I appreciated it.
And you know, Olive, it leaves many questions. It generates a lot of questions, and I think the main reason we are here with you today is to help a lot of young women and men who have joined here today to understand what does it take to get where you are at. And you've started your journey from the position of PR, and today you are on multiple boards of highly respected organization, and you've done it in a relatively short career span of 20 years. So I'd love to learn more about that, and I'm sure our audience here would love to know how they can do this for themselves.
Wow, thank you very much, Ruchira. It's, as you said, it's an amazing journey. It has been an amazing journey. Of course, it has had a lot of ups, downs, and ups, because that's part of life. But all I can say is that there are certain deliberate approaches that I took in order to get to where I am today. It is very clear that you must be very organized, but you must know exactly what you want to do, what you want to be, when, and how you're going to get there. Sometimes we think this is theory, but when you have it as a plan, a very, very clear plan in your life journey, the chances of achieving it are very high. Or if you don't achieve 100%, you will at least achieve a good percentage of that. So in my journey from the PR, which was Nile Breweries Limited, every single decision I took was well thought through. The first one is that because I was in a PR, anybody would expect me to move from one PR job to another job, because that's obvious. That's what we normally do in our normal life. So when I was in the brewery, Nile Breweries, I got a job with the Uganda Revenue Authority. I think that was head of PR. I was interviewed by the board, and I was given this beautiful job, very good paying salary, 3 times what I was earning in the brewery. The question went back to my goals and plan. Is this the right move to do? Do I want to remain into the PR or not? It's also very clear, many of you who have watched or have seen what goes on in institutions, if your focus is to become a CEO, you will notice that in most organizations, they never ask the heads of marketing and heads of PR to act as CEOs. They will always ask the heads of finance, they will ask the operation secretary to act. So you see it very clear that you're far away in getting into that position structure-wise from within, unless when it's an institution that is a product-based, like breweries and so forth and so on. So what I did, I turned down that job with Uganda Revenue Authority, and I'd got an opportunity for a course. I was able to talk to a mentor, a number of mentors, and that guided me. And that way, I made up that decision and did take the job. Fortunately, when I got back to the brewery, the managing director, then Ronnie Madban, offered me some better terms, not salary because they couldn't match the salary, but gave me other benefits, gave me a car, gave me, so at an early stage I was able to fit in there. But the decision which made me not to take that job, I had made up my mind that whereas PR was a good area, it was diverse, it would leave me doing the same thing every day, on and on. And at that time, it wasn't as innovative as it is today. But I had noticed an opportunity of brand management and marketing in the brewery. And to me, that one would give me an upper hand into progressing to the next level. So I took on the job of brand marketing manager. I got training in South Africa, Tanzania, several countries, got stints at the London Business School. That gave me that opportunity to now move into leadership and management. So that decision has to be well thought through and well structured. So I didn't take that job and stayed in the brewery. I was still thinking, what next? If I'm to move into a role of a CEO, or I'm going to move to the next level, not CEO necessarily, away from me, what qualities do I need to have? What competencies should I have? What qualifications are a must? That is also important. So when I get when I go back to the brewery after serving for a number of years, another opportunity comes in. I get two opportunities. The Uganda Telecom, still as head of marketing and communication, and the National Social Security Fund. Surprisingly, UTL was still paying me better salary. It was giving me better benefits, a vehicle, a beautiful office. And at that time, NSF wasn't giving vehicles. But you see, I had one thing that I needed to look at. I needed to be in a service sector, but I also wanted to go into a brand which has challenges, that when finally I rebrand, when finally I make a difference in an organization, it will be felt. So I made up that decision. I still did not take the job of UTL, and I went for the National Social Security Fund as a job. And that still gave me that opportunity to go in a green area, a virgin area where nobody had weighed the waters of brand marketing. But my goal was moving and progressing to the next level. I must say that in all these journeys, the brewery, don't take UTL, don't take URA, I worked with mentors. This is a journey that you cannot just walk without mentors. And at every stage, because you need somebody that trusts you, you need somebody that you're comfortable with, you need somebody that you can call up in a minute to speak to. So that went on, and I settled in a National Social Security Fund, and you can see the beautiful brand that everybody is proud of in the country. I managed that. NSF had never been rebranded in 28 years. So that journey gave me opportunity to sit into the top management leadership in NSSF. I remember when I also realized that I needed to be very knowledgeable, not only in marketing. I went on, joined the investment committees. I was able to understand what goes on with investments, because to work for NSSF at a high level, you needed to have all that knowledge. So investments, I went into finance, I went into several areas. And if you asked me, I would give you answers to each of those areas, and I would do them very well. I remember a moment when I was asked to act as managing director of NSSF. The MD was out, the deputy MD was out, and it turned down that I was in office. And in that 2 weeks that I acted, big decisions had to be made of deciding on stock exchange, where to invest. And I can tell you, because I had gone through this training and taken interest in investments, I was able to sit with the teams and advise the chairman of the board to approve. So those are things that I've done that have been very critical in my career path, that you must be structured, you must be organized, but you must see where you're going. The last one is when I got an opportunity to work as a country director of SOS Children's Villages, Uganda. At first, I was a bit hesitant, but I'd served for 9 years with NSSF. And that job would actually take me directly into the top leadership position. And still the same journey. The benefits were not as good as NSSF. The salary wasn't as good as NSSF, and many other benefits. But it had the softer part, because I'm somebody who has worked with the communities, disadvantaged people, disadvantaged women. When it came up, everybody thought I was making the wrong decision. That I can tell you. And the calls I received and the contacts I made, this time even some of my mentors, I think the feeling was that I was at a more straightforward line to move into NSSF to the next level than into the NGO. But you see, for you to be able to build a career path that I've built, you needed to have the knowledge in the private sector, in the government sector, and the NGO sector, because those are three big sectors globally. So I moved into SOS Students Villages, Uganda. Still, it was a virgin area. Awareness levels were low, over 300 staff, donor funding to be managed, finance, audit issues. I went in there, and 7 years down the road, I had done a tremendous job. 2 years down the road in SOS, I was appointed to the Global Management Council based in Austria. I represented Africa. So I think I was the only lady there from the region, or the only African on that board. And we made decisions that affected the over 135 countries in the world. So that gave me that opportunity to actually be into top leadership, top decisions, top challenges. So for you to be able to move from one step to another, you must have a structured mind, and you must know where you want to go. Sometimes you think it's not real. You must have it written somewhere else, and you must see, even when you're making decisions, what decisions are you going to make, and what impact does it have for you as a long-term process. So that's how I moved from that, and then while I was still with the NSSF, I was appointed on the board of Uganda Civil Aviation Authority. I served for 6 years. I was chairing the technical committee of the board, which is the biggest board, looking at all areas of the air of aviation, safety, security, and others, finance, human resources. So when an opportunity again comes up, advertising the position in the Uganda Civil Aviation Authority, I had the competencies, I had the skills, I had the experience, and I had the expertise. So going in to sit for that interview was very easy. And actually, I went in and performed very well. So that's how I moved from one level to another. But if you look at my education, I went in for those courses that I felt were critical for me to get that path. From the mass communication still, I went in for the MBA from ESAMI. I had good opportunities to do mass communication as a master's in Rhodes University, South Africa, with a good package. But then I had offered mass communication. What was I going to learn at a master level? That decision had to be made. I got also an opportunity, and they were offering scholarships for masters in gender. Still, the question was, what was I going to do with gender? Is that part of my goal? I turned that down. But I went in for the MBA, ESAMI, which I paid for myself. I later went on to do the balance scorecard, and I'm now a certified balance scorecard champion, which was supported by the US. I went in for the Chartered Marketer, UK, until I became a Chartered Marketer. I went in for the Africa Board Fellowship. So if you look at my structure, even the courses I've chosen to do, or the trainings I've chosen to do, have been deliberate. If you look at the job decisions I've taken, have been deliberate. So if you want to be where you want to go where you want to go, you must be deliberate in your career path. You must be able to think through whatever decision you're taking. It's not the money, it's not how quick something comes to you, but it's the thought that you put together in that decision.
Yeah. Thank you, Olive. Thank you for sharing so much of the critical junctures. I think in this short span of time, I think you told us about very critical junctures of your life that flow so seamlessly today in the form of stories, but I'm sure were not easy when you were right in the middle and thick of them. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you, Ruchira.
And Olive, I'm picking up a lot from your story, but there's one theme that is consistent throughout, and that is the ability to think for yourself, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Ability to be creative, the ability to think beyond boundaries and borders and structures that are already predetermined or are pre-existing. So for instance, I hear that you took the PR role and you were in your mind able to visualize, you were able to create, and then you were, you uplifted it to the area of branding. So it never remained a subset. You always looked for the mother figure of where all of this was emerging and where all of this was going.
Yes.
And what was very interesting also is now that I see that the choice with NSSF probably played a very strategic role in you now being appointed in banks like DFSU and now FINCA, right? I think those are opportunities that are priceless. You spoke about NSSF not being able to give benefits like car at a certain point of time, blah, 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 blah. But honestly, yeah, looking back, it doesn't seem like the biggest deal on the planet. But maybe
Exactly.
to a much younger you, it might have been important. But even then, you were able to, I think you were able to discern.
Exactly.
You were able to discern, you were able to see, you were able to make sense. And you were able, and all of that has paid off in the long run in a massive way. So that's tremendously motivating to hear, Olive.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I do want to ask you this. You mentioned that, it's important to have the flavor of the private, public, and the NGO. And you really are speaking from experience because you have charted all of these areas, right? And very, very, very intentionally, consciously, and systematically, if I may say that. So what is the difference? Can you tell us a little more from behind the scene perspective? What is the difference in terms of being board of these three different, kind of establishments? How do they look at what are the stakeholder considerations and what are the customer considerations? If you can tell us a little more about the mindset that goes into leading boards of these kind of establishments.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's an interesting question, Ruchira. Of course, I'll give this from my perspective, because practically, this is how I felt and this is how I've seen it. I started my board experience in the NGO sector. That was Uganda Women's Effort to Save Orphans, that's PSI, that's Uganda Health Marketing Group, Uganda Child Rights NGO Network. I got onto all those boards within a spate of 5 years on all of them. But one of the things that I appreciate is that the NGO sector grounds you. It takes on training for board members as almost one of the most critical areas that need to be done. The other one, when you look at the decision making, fine, you'll have all the challenges. The challenges are different in these sectors. The NGO sector is more on humanitarian grounds. You have children, disadvantaged children, you have orphans, you have women who are widowed, you have children who don't go to school, so it is the human perspective that drives the direction of the NGO sector. That means for you to be able to serve and do a good job, you must also have the mix of the heart in that decision. Meaning that if you were put at a level to say, take a decision, what would you start with? The children who are not eating food, because that's a life, and then the investment, the property. So it differs. But because you're trained, you're grounded, the NGO sector gives you the opportunity to understand, master, and become an expert on what the NGO, of what boards require, or what is required in the boardroom. It also, because in that training, you don't want to train on boards for NGO. It's a comprehensive training. So my thinking, or what I can experience, you're a better board member into the private sector and public sector if you gained a good grounding in the NGO sector. And that's what I felt. When you go to the private sector, it is it's marathon. It's tough. You're running. There are shareholders on the other side, profitability, financial challenges, cybersecurity. I mean, the issues are enormous. The expectations are high. Shareholders will need their profits. Sales must move. The competition is stiff. So for you to fit into that jacket, you must be able, as a board member, because board members, you're not operational, you won't be doing the day-to-day running of the organization, but you must be able to understand your role as a board member in the private sector. And because it's fast, if your first role of a board member is in a hectic private sector, the chances of you excelling in a short time are not easy. For me, because I came in from this NGO sector boards, I've done all this, I've seen the valleys and the hills, I've seen where we went wrong, how we got out of there. Placing me in the private sector was very easy. So it became much, much easier. And I'll tell you just one simple example. I was nominated on DFC Women in Business because I was the head of marketing in NSSF, which was a shareholder. But within 1 year, I resigned from NSSF. That meant that I was supposed to get off the Women in Business, DFCU, because I had been nominated. But when the time came in for me to step down, DFCU said no. The chairperson, Dr. Professor Winnie Tarinyeva, said no, we'll retain Olive in her own individual capacity as Olive. So that's how I remained on Women in Business, which I had gone to through NSSF, but my own individual capacity was made a choice to retain there. And then when I go to Finca, I know what it means, what the stakeholders are different. With the banks, you have the stakeholder, you have Bank of Uganda, the regulator. As a board, what are the interactions with the regulator? What are the expectations with the regulator? How are you fulfilling the regulations and laws that require that? So that is also different. When I go to the public sector, I have been on the public sector for, I told you, for 6 years. It's a different game. Sometimes you may not get the comprehensive training as much as you need, but if you've had this training already, you play a role, a strong role of supporting the rest, of fitting into that board much faster. That way, of course, the public sector is also training their board members heavily, but you have a mix in the public sector. You don't really have that everybody has served on boards. You'll have those that are political, you'll have those that are different mix. So if you have those that have had a good grounding of training, when you go in there, you actually stand out, you excel. I can give an example. I remember one time in the Civil Aviation Authority, a very serious decision had to be made, and we had just joined the board. And the meeting was called because I won't share details, and it was called for Saturday. That day, my daughter's visiting day was on. When I sent out an email and said I wasn't able to make it, the board shifted to Sunday to accommodate all of us. And for me, as Olive, a lady, that's when I felt that my role on the Civil Aviation Authority board and my input and my sharing has had impact. So I'm one person that if you go to a board, the question you should always ask yourself, how are you going to be retained on that board and other boards? Because this is by referral. It is very rare for people to refer you if you're not that good. I reached a level where I have been nominated to boards and I've not taken them on because I'm also careful on taking on too much that you won't deliver. but I read my documents. We've seen people walking into boardrooms and opening the documents in the room. You will feel the envelope of the file opening. Now, added value, the risk you have, you can never do that. So I have read, I have been organized, I have researched. Before I enter into a boardroom, it doesn't matter what boardroom it is, I must have what it requires to be there. So for me, they are all different approaches. But if you're grounded and you're organized, you're knowledgeable, and you reach levels where decision-making becomes easier, you'll manage to make it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ruchira.
Thank you so much for shedding light on that, Olive. And it almost feels as if starting work with NGO will build perspectives in life which we otherwise miss. We will, it's a retraining. It's almost a retraining in privileges.
Mm-hmm.
It's a retraining in the way we perceive right and wrong. We perceive needs versus wants. So I understand when you say that it's really the ground which prepares you for every other kind of work, right? And I appreciate you saying that, because I think a lot of our audience here aspires to serve. They really do aspire to serve. Yes, they do. They want to be CEOs? Absolutely. Do all of us want to be on boards? Absolutely. But what you're sharing with us helps us understand that these are positions of responsibility. So, Olive, coming from a place of decision making, and connecting back the learning thread, right, of what working with NGOs and the public and service sector gives us. I have, however, noticed that even your work with SOS Children Village, you brought tremendous amount of clarity. You brought a lot of direction. You brought structure and form. So can you please also share with us that while we are fighting and our primary considerations are about whether a child gets to eat or not, or some of these things, what was your experience with SOS, and what is the mindset that became necessary to make your work as country director successful?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ruchira. You rightly stated it. What made my work successful, I think, is the experience that I had gained already from the other areas. I'd gained experience from the private sector, which was enormous. I'd gained experience from government, which was enormous. And I used those two experiences that I'd had in order to form the direction for SOS. Remember, the NGO in itself, or the envelope, or the jacket, was fitting in just one direction, structured, without realizing that actually the stakeholders that contribute to the NGO sector also benefit or would love to see a good image, or to hang with a good brand, or to be recognized. So I brought on a different approach of stakeholder management and service. And I can tell you, in the 5 years after I had joined, we were able to increase funding, because it's just natural that any funder would love to associate themselves with a brand that is outstanding. So that's an area that somebody just from the NGO sector on its own couldn't see it. So when you come to financial, that was okay. Fundraising, we had the resources, we were able to boost those resources and move. But also when you look at the other matrices, the audits, if you have a financial, if you're going to conduct your audits, what kind of audits do we conduct in the NGO sector? There's no difference. But the approach from the private sector is fast, it's smooth. You want results, you want change, you want actions. So that is some of the things that I was able to do. But also remember, by the time I joined SOS, I'd served on 3 boards of the NGO sector. I had served on the Uganda Women's Effort to Save Orphans for 8 years. I had served on the Uganda Health Marketing Group for 6 years. I had served on PSI, and I was serving as chairperson of Uganda Child Rights NGO. So that knowledge and expertise on how NGOs run and what is required for an NGO to succeed was just a walkover for me when I joined the SOS Students Villages, Uganda. And I was able to see the challenges from afar. But I brought on an approach that was more of private. How do you mix the private sector way of running and doing business with the NGO sector to excel? And that's what I did. So if you look at the strategic direction, when I was appointed on the Global SOS board, which is the management council, I think I was outstanding because I was bringing on a lot of thinking from the public-private sector mindset. So if you also realize that the NGOs are changing, change is out there. You cannot do the same thing you did 30 years ago. So for you to change, you need new ideas, new mindsets, new thinking. The customer perspective was critical for me. And how do you manage customers, the customer? So I was able to use my experience from the other sectors to be able to boost the SOS Students Villages Uganda. I was able to create huge networks. I was able to manage stakeholders, and I was able to manage staff in a manner that would enable an organization to excel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you know, the keyword for me over here, there are more than a couple of keywords, but then I think you spoke about mindset. That's crucial. But for me, the fact that you mentioned that you had experience working with other NGOs, and I'm assuming the names that you've mentioned are not very big ones or not bigger than SOS, but you absolutely had experience working, you know, which gave you the ability, it built your muscle, it built how you inform yourself, knowing how people in NGO operate, gave you the foresight to be able to see if there is a train wreck coming, or you know, the plans that they are making, would they converge or not? It just translates into wisdom over a period of time.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's a very crucial takeaway for me, Olive, because I think the mindset part, intuitively, the world knows. I think the world knows about the mindset piece. What the world maybe does not appreciate enough is the fact that small things build up to bigger successes.
Exactly. And I must add that many of these are not paid for boards.
Yeah, absolutely
So
understand that.
that mix has to be done and done right.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that allows me to slightly change and shift the gear of the conversation into more Olive than what has happened on the outside. And I now want to bring the conversation inside to Olive. Olive, so can you tell us about, we heard about what the decisions you have made. I would love to hear from you, and I would love for audience over here to learn from you. What are the things that you have held close to yourself as you made these decisions? And what are the stuff that you can tell us today that they don't teach in the B schools? Yeah.
Okay, so I think, thank you, Ruchira, for that question. We can go to school. Yes, we've gone to school. We'll do the degree, you'll do the master's, you'll do the PhD, and you'll be the most knowledgeable person. But my experience that I have seen is not what makes you become what you are. You must be able to pick certain things that don't have anything to do with your school. One of them, it's our mannerisms and character. Maybe the big one that I can share is mental. If you look at my whole path, Ruchira, my whole journey, right from when I was a student, when I was making my decision to join university, when I was under pressure on which course to do because I'd excelled very well, the journey into the different jobs, I had these mentors. And those mentors are the ones that were helping me to shape my future and where I wanted to be. But your human interaction and people and relationships are very critical. And there it takes me to networks. I have established networks all my whole career that I can walk into any office, and in that office, people want to hear or listen to me. Now, when you build these networks, you must service them. You must remain focused with them because they are the only ones that actually can give you a value, and you cannot place money on that value. So I have built networks. I have built networks in the government, networks in the business, huge networks in NGOs, in my education, in police, in political. So when you look at my career path and you asked me today that, Olive, we need you to find out if this can happen in such an entity, I'll just get my phone and I'll give you a number. And I will tell you that cuts across. If it's judiciary, and you tell me there's something that we needed to find out in the judiciary, if it's the legislature, if it's the executive, if it's whichever it is, I have established myself a list, a group of networks that I have moved my journey with over the years. And this started over 20 years ago. And I have also serviced, I have remained in touch with the networks. So that, you don't get that at school. Attitude. In the boards where I have served, we have made decisions to hire people, whether at CEO level, head of department level, and the decision to choose has had nothing to do with only your qualifications. Sorry, I need to go. Okay, I think one of the areas that I can tell you which you don't get to school is building your character. Building your character is your personal responsibility. You want people to know you and people to understand you for certain qualities that you have. It's similar to saying, I want to build my personal brand as Olive. So I looked at what should Olive be. If you ask me on my level of character, what are those things, those values that I've walked with? But then when you build this character and you have these values, they must be real. If people are saying you're consistent, they must see you and confirm that actually she's very consistent. When she says we will move in this direction, she'll not just wake up one morning and change it without reason. If you say it's accountability, if you say it's integrity, if you say these are the values, the human respect, one of the character that I have, that I've built, is respect to humanity. It doesn't matter the power that I have. It doesn't matter how many boards I sit on, but I remain real. I remain down to earth and work with people. Sometimes you find somebody having a big job or being appointed on the board, and the first thing one thinks is power and authority. No, that doesn't build your character. So you need to focus on building your character, a character that is likable, a character that connects with people, a character that can exude empathy, a character that can bring on leadership without making somebody feel like they're not good enough. All those are virtues that you need. The other one is networks. Networks are virtual. Networks are powerful. It's almost impossible for you to succeed without networks. But as you build these networks, you must also be in a position to service them. Networks are not entities that you'll have. These are networks with individuals. There's a human being behind that network. So how many of those that do you have? in the different sectors where you want to go. How many of those do you have in government, in the political circles, in the NGO sectors, network? But these are people who must trust you, believe in you, and want to do something for you whenever you approach them. So those are virtues that I think. Attitude. We've sat where I sit, we've held interviews for several positions, whether managing director or general manager, the top positions, or boards, or to get onto the boards. All the candidates will have the qualifications, they'll have the competences, they'll have the expertise, but we are looking out for attitude. You can actually look at two people in this panel and you will take one because of the right attitude, the right character, and the humanity and way of doing things. So reasons, those are things that you don't go and learn in school. And the world today, it's succeeding is almost impossible. You will succeed because you're knowledgeable, expertise, but it's a short term, it's a short-lived. When you get a problem, it's like building a brand that will fall out over the day. So you build this brand on knowledge, expertise, and a doctor, professor. One issue comes up and the brand goes down totally. If you build it with that knowledge, expertise, plus the soft skills, the humanity, the character, that brand will be powerful. Even when you get into issues, there will be pillars that hold you on, and those are the pillars that you need. And for me, that's what I can share in that area.
Thank you, Olive. And what you said about building our character as a personal responsibility resonates so much with me. And also the point about relatedness, right? It's not just relationship. You know, people can have relationships, but they could be broken, they could be difficult, they could be angst in relationships. So it's not relationships, and it's also not about just knowing people because they are in your network. There is a difference. There has to be a relatedness in these relationships. There has to be a connectedness in this relationship. And even as you mentioned the point of the brands, that the brands can't be made and created only with the intellect. You know, I mean, that's what I heard, that it's not with the head that you create it. You have to really know the values, the ethos of what you're creating. There are people involved, and you're projecting something that the organization really stands for, because that's what a brand does. It represents the organization. So yeah, very powerful. Thank you, Olive.
Thank you.
Slight interjection of this question. It's been on my mind, and I'd like to certainly take the opportunity to ask you this since I have you here. And that is, do board trainings help? Are you a proponent, or, you know, you believe that's just bogus? What would you say about, you know, board trainings? Does it help?
Wow. Board trainings are the pillar that make one a strong board member. Board trainings are the only way in which you'll be able to perform, excel from an informed point of view. And it's very clear, because if you were appointed today to serve on the board without going through the proper formal trainings, the chances of you excelling and the chances of you following the governance, the corporate governance structure, will almost be impossible. We have seen a number of people appointed and they are not trained. And in the first 1-2 weeks, they become operational. They want demand for a car, they want to demand for a house, they want to make an office, they want to practically play a role of operation in that organization. Those situations arise because of lack of training and grounding on what the role of a board member should be vis-a-vis the role of a manager or managing director. You'll also see that there are boards that we are appointed on, and by virtue of being appointed, it gives you that clout, it gives you that power, it gives you that admiration from the rest. So if you've not been able to go through proper training, you'll misunderstand that clout. You'll misunderstand that power and authority, and actually you'll misuse it. So proper training in governance will give you the requirements. We've read the King's report, version what is required of a board member, what are the 7 pillars that you must be able to fully understand and be able to practice. You'll also be able to make the right decisions. You will defer a decision because you know why you need to defer a decision. You'll be able to make that decision from an informed point of view. So training, if you ask me, that is one of the pillars that must be part and parcel of anyone who gets to the board. Even if the board where you've been appointed does not train you, there are institutions or institutes where training is going on. I remember I did some of those on my own because I kept thinking, I need to do this. Where do I do it from? I went in for 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 weeks. So I think it's critical. The other one which you can also do is after you've been grounded, network with those that have been on boards before. We have several people who have served on boards for many years. They are now experts. They are experienced. What interaction are you having with them? That interaction will help you to look at what you have studied, what you've been training, and touch it and put in place and compare it with what the practical part of aspects are. So if you ask me, anyone who is appointed on a board, please make sure that you have gone through a proper training in order to be able to deliver, make the right decisions, and be proud. Actually, when you're a trained board member and stand up to speak in a boardroom, you normally speak from an informed point of view. And by the time you're done, you're respected. You can actually tell when you are highly respected in a boardroom or not. You'll also tell if you have one of you who is not respected because they'll not talk from a mindset. Remember, these managers are also very knowledgeable. So for you as a board, which area are you going to focus on? So I think I would say that is critical. And so I could say even mandatory to be trained.
Yeah. So I'm taking away a few things from what you just said. One is board training has a skill set component to it. Board training has a mindset component to it. And board training, there is a possibility to specialize in areas. All right, great. So that's very helpful, Olive. Thank you so much. And I think what would be great, Olive, at this point would be to know what's next for you.
Okay. Thank you, Ruchira. I think what is next for me, having been awarded the Africa Women Leaders Award in Mauritius 2022, it was a prestigious event. It was a momentous occasion. And when I walked up to the stage, one of the things that reflected in my mind was how much I had done and how much I'd put in. But most importantly is how many people had held my hand to take me to where I have reached. And looking at that and looking at how much effort, which people, which mentors, and so on, I felt that the only thing I can do to give back is actually to launch this leadership mentorship program and be able to touch and reach many more women, young people, and men. And for me, I feel it's a dream that I had had before. It's one thing that I kept wanting to do, and I actually started on it at a small scale, because right now I think I've touched over 80, if I'm not mistaken, 80 young people and women, actually some of them my age, where we have talked, we have chatted, but I want to make it bigger, better, and beautiful. So this award was a trigger. Once I got the award, I said, wow, you mean somebody somewhere in this world has recognized me? How did they recognize me? I have done a lot for society. So I had all these questions in my mind, and I can tell you it was a bit sentimental. And I just told myself the only thing I can do is walk out there, launch this mentorship leadership program, and let's see how many will benefit from it. And I also strongly believe it will be a turning point and a change in this country and out of this country, because people will be able to do things better, do them structured, and just don't do them accidentally, but structure your journey from where you started and see where your journey takes you. And when you excel, I excel. When thousands excel, it's my gratitude. So that's where I am. And I want to thank you, Ruchira. I'm blessed to have Ruchira, one of those that has just been awarded out of their top 100 coaches in India, a beautiful, prestigious award. There's no other person better than her to be the one taking on this program for me. So I want to thank you, Ruchira, for that. And I want to wish you the best in your coaching area. And this partnership, I can tell you, is going to make a difference in this world.
Thank you, Olive. Thank you so much. And it's my honor, it's my delight, and it's my gratitude to you that I am going to be able to work with you closely and bring such a powerful thought and a hope, a dream, a wish into reality. So that work is very close to my heart as well. And to all the members over here, to all the audiences over here, I'd just like to give you a little more background, a little more detail into the executive and leadership mentoring program Olive is just launching. We will be coming back to you every alternate month with a different subject, with a different topic, and we want to co-create this with you. So in the spirit of co-creation, what we would like to know from you, our audience over here, is that what are the areas that you're struggling with today? What are the areas that you feel loss of direction or lack of direction? What are the things that continuously you have noticed that they get in the way? So if you bring that to us, if you bring your considerations and deliberations to us, there's a lot more space to direct them in a more structured fashion with all of you. So I look forward to hearing from you. And on a parallel track, right? Those who want to get directly mentored by Olive, we have options for you to do that. We'll be sending out mails. Please have a look. There is something for everybody, and we are doing our best to make sure that you know this reaches as many people, not just in the corporate sector, but women who are entrepreneurs, women who are in alternative careers like music, like baking, like fashion, women who are in science, women who are in agriculture, women who are working with education, women who are working in NGO sectors. We want to make sure that we are inclusive in our approach. We are really solving for the big problems of the society. We are empowering women. And women are empowering other women. And this is not a program necessarily that we are only exclusively extending to women. Mentorship is mentorship. Guidance is guidance. Help is help. Support is support. We do not differentiate that. So this is an inclusive program. We are launching it on the day, on the occasion of Women's Day. But please do believe that this is an inclusive program. And we hope to see you again. With that, Olive, thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. Olive is present here with us for some more time for questions and Q&A sessions that you may have. So please feel free to put your questions on the chat. We will see as many questions that we can take, what can be answered now in the best benefit of the large crowd that we have here. And yeah, and maybe there is scope to take some of these questions in the next session. So with that, I invite and open the session for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.